Hello there, and welcome to this short session on your Bimini top project planning. Today I'm joined by Damon Johnstone from Lakeside Marine Canvas. My name's Neil Hancock from Aussie Boat Covers in Melbourne. Marine Canvas is in Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome, Damon.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Lovely to meet you. What we're going to do today is Damon and I are going to set out a diagram for you guys on the whiteboard. We're going to draw up the project that we're going to have for you. Later on, we're going to be joined by David Elliott from Dave's Custom Trimmers in Brisbane, Australia, and we're going to pattern out this Bimini top frame. To start with, what we need to do is you need to get a concept of the project that we're going to start today, Damon. So traditionally, we're just going to build a Bimini top, a 3-bow Bimini top. So if I were to draw it like anybody else would draw it, I think it's pretty straightforward. I think ideally today what we want to do is talk about a little bit of language as well, that I would use that may be a little different to what you would use. So I would suggest that this would be the base. You would use...
that would be my mount.
That would be your mount. So base and mount is slightly different, but okay. Okay, so we've got to work out how we're going to, you and I are going to have a language so that we can make this thing properly. So we want to obviously bend a bow in a two-dimensional drawing like so. Okay, that is going to be our primary bow, okay, which is our rear bow. So we're going to call that primary bow that we're going to use as our reference point. We're going to need to put this through your bender. So today we're going to be using Damon's bender. Now it's adaptable to a lot of benders, but today we're just going to use a bender which I have a very similar one back in Australia. So I have an affinity for what we're going to do. Ideally what we need to do is come up with a language and some dimensions that are going to work best. So what are we going to do? We've got our base or our mount. So what are we going to call this across here?
I call that my mount width.
Okay. So that everybody understands on this side of the equator, we're going to call it the mount width. What I'm going to call it is my beam bottom dimension. Okay, so we're going to come up with a dimension like that, which we've already done prior to starting today, and we came up with a 96 inches, I believe, was our mount width. So I'm already speaking like you are, mate. So ideally what we've got also is our height, and we've got our, what would you refer to that as?
My frame width.
So frame width, interesting. And to be a little boring, I'm going to call that my beam top width. Now that refers to the total outside width of the frame once we've bent it and crowned it.
Correct.
Okay, so I've drawn a very ordinary diagram here, but ideally if we were to look at it and once the project's finished, we're going to have a lot more angle here, aren't we?
Correct.
And we're going to have a lot more crown through here. Okay, so we've already predetermined our height as, now that's interesting, we didn't work out what our height was called, so I would just refer to that as height, but you would say...
In this scenario, I would be calling that my leg length.
Leg length. I like that. Okay, so we've determined that our mount width is 96 inches. We're going to bring that in a little, so you had an interesting formula here that's just over Damon's shoulder on the side there. So we need a formula, okay, because we need to understand that we're going to be bringing our steel through a radius. We're also going to be running our steel through a crowner a bit later on, so we have to have some
added extra.
Added extra, yep, correct. So your formula, which I love, is our
leg length.
Leg length, okay.
Plus your width to get across the top, and then your leg length coming back down again.
Okay, so let's understand that. So we're going to have a piece of steel. Okay, that's going to be a given length, and we're going to work that out shortly. We're going to have a leg length, as Damon said, then our given top.
Given top.
Then our leg length again. And that's going to be that there. So we're going to predetermine what those are. So help me work this out.
Okay.
So what have we got to do?
Well, to start with, I would be taking and determining what my width, my frame width up here needed to be across at this point.
Okay.
And I think we decided we were going to go with 80 inches
80
across
inches.
through there.
Terrific.
So where my bender on my bender is going to be a mark right in this location right there.
Which is here. Yep.
And here. So we're coming back from the curve.
Correct.
For the radius part. So we need to subtract for that. And I'm subtracting 10 inches on either side. So I'm subtracting 20 inches from my frame width, from 80 down to 60 inches.
Okay, so our frame width equals 80 inches minus
20.
our 20 inches here. We have 60 inches. And that's the distance
Between the two.
Between those two there.
Now, depending on how much crown I need in the particular scenario, we'll need to add back in, because this dimension here is as though this is going to stay pretty much flat.
Exactly.
And so if we need a lot of crown in it, a considerable amount, we'll need to add to that
All right,
dimension.
let's do that. Let's do that. So, okay, we've got an overall 60 inch from start of bend to start of bend through the top. Okay, let's give ourselves a center mark, because we always want to make sure that symmetry through our Bimini top is important. The one thing that's consistent in any boat is the center line of the boat, and we want to make sure that we line up with the center line all the time. Okay, so our center line. So now we have a 30 inch and a 30 inch. So go on. So we're going to add to that.
If we're going to add, let's say we're going to put quite a bit of crown in that, I would add, you know, you could add just a ½ inch or quarter inch, but let's say we add an inch to either of those. That's going to give an additional 2 inches to allow for crown in the top of this.
All right.
So those would be 31.
Oops, 31 inches. Okay, now let's go back to our leg length.
Leg length.
Okay, our height.
Because our leg height we were shooting for is coming from here to this point, the very top corner.
Yep.
We're now coming around a radius. We need to add for that. So we're adding 4 inches to the leg length.
And we agreed that our for the use of round numbers, we agreed that we're going to have a 46 inch
Height.
for our leg length. We're going to add our 4 inches, which is our formula. Okay, and we're going to come up with 50 inches. So here we have on the table, we've got our cut length for our steel to go through our bender, which is over here, which we're going to do shortly. So we're going to get our steel out later on, and we're going to transfer all of those marks, and then we're going to come up with our primary bow for our 3-bow Bimini top.